But if you would, go ahead and in those already fire things, look for something that you think is a plan view. Remember, that's our most important one, right? Yeah, we get 27 cases yesterday, and one family member. So that's what it's like to where it is still down a little. Everybody get a bit of binder info? Yeah, it's weird about that. Can I ask you all a favor too? If you see me walk over here and I don't have that going in the screen, holler at me because I may try to maximize the screen and then include that too. So I'm curious now, when you guys pulled it up, did you bring up a browser? And I'm sure, like, I use Firefox, but for some reason, Firefox doesn't like it. So, did anybody bring up Firefox and you can't see it? What's it automatically bring up on yours? Chrome? Chrome? And it did anyway? Maybe, you know what? Quirky, that's what you're doing? Okay. All right, so some of you already found you kind of can't see it, and you really don't want to view this in a web browser. Okay, you're working now? Awesome. Okay. I'm back with you. Sorry. Where was I? Anybody remember? What was I doing? So when you click on those, it brings up a web browser that isn't always the best to view these drawings. You really want to end up in that favorite Adobe Acrobat, and it's probably going to just bring up the reader. So if yours has not opened up in Acrobat Reader, I'm going to go ahead and show you how to do that. Sometimes I think you can just go ahead and I right-click, and then I say open with Adobe Acrobat. I don't want to convert. Yeah, let's bring it up. Really what I would normally do is I go ahead and download and then it says open with. And it knows that I probably want to use Acrobat. Yep. So if everybody would, make sure you get to Acrobat, and then we may have to work on some tools. Now, later in the semester, and possibly your computer is already trying to bring up a thing called Bluebeam. I think they actually, Venu, something like that. Did anybody bring up Bluebeam? Yeah, just click on that. Oh, good. Okay. See the little arrow that looks top right? No, the next one over. There you go. Yep. Download, or go ahead and hit cancel, and then right click, and it should be. Oh, I didn't want to do open with, huh? All right, let's go back to the other download way then. Funny how they all do something different. Yeah, go ahead and just, hit it to your downloads area. And then go to your folder icon at the bottom there. Yes, ma'am. And then click on downloads, or there it is right there. Just double click on that. So you may have to download it and then open it with Acrobat. And one big reason we're doing that is because if we don't ever come back to this room, I can still get you through this semester with free stuff. Because we can do just about everything we need to in Acrobat. Now, I had a little trouble because they depend on every computer you're on, but before we start, hopefully you did get it down and you've already found a plan view, but right now, look for some tools that let you zoom in, zoom out, make it a page wide. And I hope I've got them. So usually this icon right here puts it to the width of the page. See what 1-to-1. 1-to-1 puts it really big. And that should be show full screen. Where is my, not the width, but I know if I hit those are painful. Pan and zoom window, nope. Well, I can tell you that another helpful tool, what's this one? Nope. This little tool here, the zoom window, you probably, used to it, but if I wanted to zoom in on that, it's one thing that's going to be real helpful. And then you're probably just going to go right back to page width, right? Sometimes, I got to find that tool. Never understand why sometimes they aren't there, but I'm looking for the tool that shows the whole page. And if anybody's already a Acrobat professional, you know that you can go into these menus up here just like any other Windows program. And we're going to look for full screen on me. Hide toolbars, nope. Show and select, pan and zoom. That is bizarre. Did you guys find one? Or did you get it downloaded? Show edit tools, yep. Ooh, there's the tool, isn't it? Is that it there? Fit to one full page, yeah. You find that under show page? I think I know where that is. Yeah, probably won't let you go edit it because that's when you have to start paying. Mm. Well, if all else fails, I go do a little search, which is always a nice way to do it. Type in, too many keyboards, full page, fit one full page. And let's see, does it show up finally after that? Well, that's lovely. Gotta love it, man. Got to love it. I'm going to give up. I normally don't give up. Do you know how you got that back up there? No? Do you know how you got that tool?
Yeah, so you have to do it when you up on the front page, right click up there.
Yep.
Yeah, and then it was the
Display tool? 100. Yeah, isn't that neat?
Oh yeah, mine's on there under the
Yeah. I'm going to get rid of, I don't want full screen mode. Maybe that'll give me room to, nope. Yeah, it's all right. I can live without it. I'll make it work. Okay. Now, in Adobe Acrobat, we can actually highlight things, mark things. We can actually count things, which is if you're doing quantity takeoffs, that's really helpful. Now, there's Bluebeam and some others. Has anybody used any quantity takeoff software already? We usually have a few. Plan Swift, sound familiar? Anybody? No? Okay. Well, they're advanced drawing management systems. And this isn't really a class about that, but it is helpful towards the end to show you how to use that. Because right now, you know, you don't really have a good feel for how drawings are, so you don't want something managing it for you. You want to learn how it works. All right, so you know that we always are talking about the first view that is the most important, being the plan view, right? You got, let me go over here because I think it shows up. But what we're looking at on the screen there is the cover sheet. There's going to be a table of contents. There's going to be symbols and abbreviations. And those are all going to be at the front. And then guess what? That's not the only place they're going to be. Because remember those professions that we were talking about? Boy, I think that doesn't really show up too well there. Let's see if I can fit them in there. Yeah, we'll just put them over here. Yeah. Okay, so last time we talked about these professions and then that they have these drawings with their initials on it. And then we talked about also that maybe there's a level of importance about the way they would be put in drawings. And that's true because they typically are in order of maybe how you would build it. So really, civil comes first, architectural, structural, and then these others for the most part. But I think you'll find if you scroll down, see if these drawings, and so what you're going to be looking for is down here, mostly over here in this title block, you're going to be looking for those letters. I'm going to go ahead and put an A there for now. So scroll down and tell me which ones sort of come up first. So did we come up with C, A, or S first? Really, we got this G, right? Which is sort of rare. Usually they don't put anything, but those are really stand for general. So I don't use, since that's not that common, we don't really ask you to know it. But you'll notice we got a G down here. And then let's keep on cruising. See if I can. Well, that's neat. I found the tool without, there we go. So let's keep on. Oh, no, look. Well, this is weird, isn't it? G 1.1, and then we got a whole new, another 17 sheets, kind of all by themselves, right? So the numberings is painful. But at least you know that these belong together, right? 1 through 17. And their title block runs sideways. It's another cover sheet. But we already have a cover sheet. We have more cover sheets. We got a bunch of notes. Okay, and now right away, even on the G sheet, you did see a plan view. So this is looking down, right? But this, and that's an important view. This sheet would take you to other places. Most of the time, you're going to start, though, in the civil drawing and start looking at, like this one here is a demolition plan. So it says over here on the side that it's a demolition plan. And it's nice if those are separate, because you will see that these drawings can get really busy. So sort of take a mental snapshot here and look at that and say, well, okay, I got a lot of white space left on that sheet. That's nice. Because it's just clearly telling you what you have to demolish. Or there's remove and replace. There's all kinds of little things. And then we've got a horizontal control plan. So these are one of my favorites, because you can't build something without the survey control. So it gets its own sheet, and really it's not giving you anything about the dimensions of the real building. This is only saying that there's control points out there that you're going to use to navigate. But was it this class who asked about the, no, I think it was the other day. Let's see, I'm going to zoom in here. You guys follow along and zoom in would be great. Does anybody know what this little fancy little piece of armor is up here? I'm going to try to stay here so that people can see it. I might even try to use my annotation tools. I don't know. Oops, see, that don't work too great, because then it wants to do the video. It's too cute. So that don't work. Lovely. Uh-oh. No, we don't want to do that. There we go. All right, anybody know what this thing is? Somebody's got to have a guess. Come on. Come on. I can't get too close enough to pull it right out of your throat. Take a guess? No. Come on. I think I'm just going to wait till somebody guesses. Is that an arrow of some sort? It actually really is hard to kind of tell what that is. And they didn't put an N there. That is a north arrow. And this is a scale for the drawings. 1 inch equals 30. So we would use that if we laid a scale on there. Now, why is the north important? Because they're giving you, at some point here, we'll probably find the control points, but if that's north that direction, this is one of the things that when you sometimes omit something, you are actually still saying something. Now, this is one of the cases where you really don't want to leave this out, because the rule of thumb is that north would always be up on the paper. So this would be normally pointing up. Now, it doesn't always have to be that way. It's just that if you change it, you really need to make sure that you tell somebody that's the right direction. Now, why would they turn it? Well, these sheets are in what we would call kind of a landscape format, right? And this is very slight, but this project is a little longer this way than this way. So they laid it in that direction, and north fits in that direction. So they really were doing this to get this to maximize the space on the sheet. Okay, and you guys know I'm a land surveyor. They've actually put coordinates on this monument there that documents the corner. And that's not a bad thing. I just tend to not like to use property corners themselves as the control points, because they're more of a legal thing, but it's not like against the rules or anything. And there's these coordinates here, but they don't tell us much about it. So I think I already know that these drawings, and I'll have to tell you that I typically play a little trick on myself so that I go on this journey with you, is I typically pick a different set of drawings to do this exercise with. But if you would, just look around and see if you see anything that says the word coordinate system or datum. So see if you can find that anywhere. Here's a little note about calling, what do we call it, Missouri 1 call. So you know you have to call them before you start, because all the utilities won't be on there. So you probably already can tell that I never did find anything that said what the coordinate system is. Now, that's not really the end of the world, but I usually like to use it to tell you a little lesson about that. If somebody just puts X and Y, which we call them north and east, which is Y and X coordinates, and they don't tell you what datum it's on, you probably need to find out sooner than later what it was intended to be. Because just looking at those numbers, some states make you survey in metric. Some states make you use a thing called an international foot. Some U.S. survey foot. So just some blank numbers doesn't help you out much. Now, I'm not going to spend much more time on survey stuff there, because hopefully I'll see some of you in my survey class and I'll explain that. We're doing it right now, converting between those. All right, we'll move on. Survey. Now we got a utility plan. So one thing that I really do like about this sheet, this set of drawings again, is that they really tried to separate things. Because again, now it's getting a little busier, right? And as we move on, we'll hit a grading plan. And now we're looking pretty darn busy, right? So if you would, make sure you're on sheet 6 of 17. Now, technically, this is part of the civil drawings, but there's no C at the bottom. So yeah, the rules aren't always followed, right? But if you think about it, a survey is really part of the civil site work. A lot of times, though, it won't have anything because this is more about these folks over here, civil, architectural, and mechanical, electrical, plumbing, and surveying. They may not work at the same company. And so somebody usually tries to manage this. And if you're going to build a building, which one of those do you think you would normally go to maybe start the project? So you just won the lotto and you're going to build some really cool building. You're going to visit the mechanical, electrical, plumbing first, or the civil, or the architect? Architect, yeah. That's typically where everybody starts. Now, that's not always the case. Infrastructure. Okay, so that's true for architecture, but I want you to know that on the other side of things, if you're building heavy civil or infrastructure projects like your highways, dams, bridges, you're probably going to go to a civil engineer, and actually it's going to be the government type project like the Missouri Department of Transportation, and they're going to have their own civil engineering group. But it probably will, they do some in-house design and they do some out-of-house design. What this really all fits into you're going to hear this a lot, is the AEC industry, architectural, engineering, and consulting. They are all in that group. Now, MEP is still part of that, but it is considered a high specialty. So imagine when you look at these drawings that every one of them that has their own little letter on it is working somewhere else and probably rarely talking to the other people with those letters. Which is why you're going to see them in this. These drawings already show you that they do not look the same. Civil infrastructure, since it's government ran, you'll have things like the Government Services Association, which administration, which runs all federal buildings. Those plans will all look the same. MoDOT, Illinois, Federal Highway, U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. They tell you how your drawings are going to look, and if you're lucky enough to work in that industry, it's kind of nice because after a few years, you got it down pat pretty well. You can flip through drawings pretty easy, but if you're in the commercial building side, you're going to look, I will tell you, will probably never see plans that look the same, even if they kind of come from the same architect overseeing things, because it's probably not the same architect that did the last project. So anyway, I think we usually have a question that says, who do you kind of start with? Well, it probably is, we'll say architect, definitely for buildings, and then they're going to manage all that stuff. So you say, well, why do they have different sheet numbers, different drawing numbers? Well, they want to keep track of their drawing numbers and then add them to the set. That's why you'll have all the total count of those versus what we'll see here in a minute. All right, now, I want to spend a little time on this grading plan before we jump to the architectural. And I would like for you to zoom in and take a look right around in here. And has anybody seen a drawing like this with, those are called contours, showing the topography? Yeah, I've seen some. You know, once it kind of sinks in what it is, it's not as scary because look, we just zoomed in there and my goodness, you know, we got hatching taking up space here. We got, these are the contour lines. I'm gonna try to point on here, but these are the contour lines. And then there's these dashed lines over here. So remember, our two big things, you got to show existing and proposed or final. So existing is usually dashed or really light lines. And it can be really difficult to say, this is where the lighter line is and the darker line starts. You'll have to figure that out on the set of plans. Now this one is not terrible. These are dashed upon dashed. So no mistaking that they're dashed. And those tell you that that's what the ground looks like before you start. And then these dark contour lines tell you what you're going to make it look like. So for you to get just a grip of this, and we're going to spend, you know, a week on site drawings, but if I told you that these numbers, 5073, 72, 71, represented elevations, when you get done with that building, did you build it in a hole or on top of a hill? On a hill? Because like, what are most Walmarts? For some reason, they're always built into a hole. And actually, it's more that it's not actually an accident. But a lot of times, you've got to dig out some, and then you maybe don't want to haul things off. So they usually go in a low area. You know, I'm not a fan of that. And if you build a house someday, make sure it's kind of higher than the ground around it. I don't know what the heck's wrong with residential contractors, but you've probably heard your parents griping about, oh, it rains and it comes in the door, it rains, it comes in the garage door. That's because they do not understand this. And then I've learned over the years that whatever I want to set my house finished floor, because this word here, FF, means finished floor, and that's the magic number. Because that is going to be the main floor level that everything's going to be related to. Now, I just told you that the elevations out there are like 5,073, which is close to a mile. So I don't know, is this project in Denver? Because that's the Mile High City, right? But the finished floor is 79.33. Are we going to drop 5,000 feet? No, what they did is, and this is common, but you got to remember this, is that they truncated the 5 zeros and said, so this really would have been 5,073, I think 77, 78, and we get to, should be a 79 right here. And then it's 0.33 feet, about that much higher than 5079. But to make things easier moving forward, they took off the 50, and then the LL means lower level, so those are two really important numbers. And then we're going to have one more twist to the finished floor here in a minute. And it's really going to amplify how these folks operate in a vacuum. And it's not all bad. There's good reasons. All right, so we got to the end of 17, and that was the civil drawings kind of standing on their own, and they didn't have the little C on it, right? Now, if I was the architect running it, I would have kind of said, hey, look, folks, here's the title block we're all going to use, okay? If you don't like it, I'll get another engineer. You know, not a big deal. Shouldn't be in this day and age, but sometimes it is. All right, so we get done with the civil, and now, remember there was this other one I mentioned. What's an L? Is it the loser's plans? That's the landscape plans. And they typically call themselves LA's landscape architects. There's planners that get certified too. And if you think about it, if you're doing the site work with the civil, and then the landscape drawings are telling you these are all these fancy trees and things, which we want to make sure if we take some down, we want to put some back. But they're site related, so it makes sense. That's one of the, it may be out of building sequence though, right? So I'm constantly lying to you. We did civil drawings, architectural, structural, mechanical, because that's how you build it. But then the landscape ones here are following civil. Well, again, it's because it's related to the site work, but you might put the trees in last. You might put them in the middle of the project. It sort of depends on when you build maybe the parking lot or the curb islands or wherever those things are going to be. Because you can't plant the trees and then drive dozers and cranes around on this thing. So it's a little out of building sequence. So that's how this semester is going to work is we got a general rule and then there's exceptions. But you might zoom in because it's nice. I mean, personally, I like looking at these landscape drawings because they get to use cool symbols that us boring civil engineers don't get to use, you know. I go out and count trees and give it to somebody else. But yeah, pretty cool, you know. Looks more like maybe you're building a tiki hut cabana there. But then they're calling out existing trees too, right? And you hope, is this tree bigger than that tree or vice versa? If they did it right, the symbols represent ones that are bigger than the others, but don't count on it anybody know what you call, we know how we measure the trunk of a tree, but what's the entity that you refer to when you talk about the full size of a tree? Anybody know? Would love for somebody to know this because I've never asked it before. What happens when it rains? And the water may go through some of the tree and the leaves, but then it might drip on the outside. They call that a drip line. Now, it's sort of expensive and time consuming to go measure the trunk of the tree and the drip line. And usually no one wants to pay a surveyor to do it. So do not count on that represents the real size. Some drawings do, some don't. Why does that matter? I mean, maybe you want to bring a piece of equipment in and you think it's a little tree and you didn't walk out there and check, or go to Google Earth, maybe, and it'd be in the way and you better not knock some down or you'll have who knows who showing up trying to stop the job. And then, dadgummit, didn't I tell you architectural comes first still? Well, man, somebody felt like structural came first. Now that is a bit odd, I will say. I'm not exactly sure how that happens. And we'll come back to structural because we want to keep going on because finally, I want everybody to pull this up and get to A1.1 because we're finally looking at the architectural. And let's see, what do they call this one? Do they even give it a name? Because it is a plan sheet, right? Architectural site plan. Now, before we go too much further into this, plans and construction documents, sort of what's the fourth dimension is time. You've got pre-bid, during bid, post-bid, post-construction, pre-construction, preliminary. You got the works, right? And this is really neat because usually you don't see this, but they've tracked it nicely. And in chronological order, let's look like 2008. Yep. They're saying, hey, we did a schematic design. And the plans may have looked, you know, similar to this with a lot less information. And then they moved along and did design development and construction documents. Well, how come when we hit construction documents, we don't have 100%? Because it's a moving target. But it's nice to produce some along the way so that other people can review it. It's probably a contractual requirement. The owner, Missouri Department of Transportation, or some commercial entity, if they're smart, they're going to say, I want to see your plans at 50%. Because if we need to change something, we need to know. And guess what else it does? Because, you know, you procrastinate when you're in college, right? Guess what happens in the real world? You're not, let's say, not busy, but you probably got 5 or 6 projects going on, and they never give you enough time to get them done. So usually what happens is, has anybody been around on producing a set of drawings, worked in a place doing it yet? Well, usually what happens is, you'll end up probably staying at the office for 2 or 3 days straight to meet that deadline. And that is not fun, because the first one I did, we stayed for 2 days straight, and you get a little cranky, right? Anybody done some sleep deprivation? Makes you cranky. Yeah, I know this class, man. It's like sleep deprivation, isn't it? Wake up! Oops, sorry. There's a method, and you know how teachers love to use red pens and mark up things, right, to correct them? And I hear that red pens create anxiety now. So, sorry, but I like my red pen too. When you are working on drawings, you might have kicked out this 50% construction document. And hopefully one of those licensed people with the little letters there is going to look at them, and there's a bunch of junior engineers running around, and they're correcting them, and yes, they're using red. And it may or may not be on a real piece of paper. They're probably using Adobe Acrobat or Bluebeam or something, or AutoCAD. And maybe you've seen markups, but you can do markups in these CAD programs. And it can go on forever and ever and ever. Hopefully you've experienced something that goes along with my class philosophy, is that you cannot get anything perfect. You can only strive for excellence, which is why you're going to constantly hear me remind you that drawings are not perfect. They convey an intent. Now, sort of back to there's this little saying, you know, well, I'll tell you how the saying was told to me the first time. I was up for 2 days straight, me and my friend, printing drawings, correcting drawings. Our boss is putting red on the drawings, correcting it. We're printing it again. I mean, it's terrible. Then the owner of the company walks in about 8:30 in the morning by us, you know, frantically printing out, and he pulls us over and he says, you guys know how to get these drawings out of here? Of course, we were really in the mood for some advice for someone we hadn't seen for 6 months, right? He's like, stop putting red on them. He's like, go tell that to the boss upstairs, you know, because we're going to print them out. We're done putting red on them. But anyway, that's how this goes. And my point is that 50% construction documents are probably like 30. 95% is probably like 75. And bid documents is like 90. If they were smart enough to not put 100% next to that, right? Because probably some attorney told them that that creates liability. They're never 100%. So anyway, drawings have a time frame because the construction folks probably didn't see anything until they got the bid documents, unless you were in design build, right? Then you get to be involved in all this, and everybody kind of learns a few lessons when you get to be involved in one of those for the first time. Now, what is neat about them putting it on here, and I'm a fan of documentation like this, is that you better look at the date of the drawings you pick up to work from. Because what isn't shown here, maybe it's at the bottom, we'll see. Yeah, I don't believe they've done it on this one. That's good. After the bid, there can be addendums, supplements, and changes. And those will really get you. For instance, 3 years ago even, worked at a company that the drawings were supposed to be in a certain folder on the computer that were final. Not pre-final, pre-final, final, but they're final and current. So our surveyors took them, staked out an elevator shaft for a hotel in St. Louis, and it was a foot off. And then they built the bottom part of the elevator shaft. And then some smart project manager came along and did what I'll teach you in the survey class and walked around and realized that something doesn't look right. So they had to chisel it out, and our insurance had to pay for it. So drawing management is part of that time frame, and you really better make sure you've got the most current drawing. They'll usually put those, if they're doing it right, you'll see that they'll put a cloud around something they changed, and it'll have a little symbol, and it'll tell you in the title block what it belongs to. Okay, let's see. Let's get back in here. That's the one I want. Let's see. No, it's not. Okay. That's the architectural site plan. So look, the architects have their own site plan, right? And then let's see what we get into here. What are they calling this one? Perimeter under drain. We haven't even really got to. Well, we finally get to the lower level plan. And then upper level plan. You might kind of expect for that first floor, the upper level to be first drawing, but no, you know, it's the bottom. So go to A 2.1, and let's zoom in here and take a look at some of these symbols. That's the one I want. And oh shit. Yeah, just cruise around there and see if you see some things that, you know, maybe make you think, you know, what do they mean? I really want to look at, yeah, that'll do probably. Okay, so I'm going to fill in part of that journey. That's interesting. Come on, baby. You never know. That might have been it. Yeah, all right, we're back. Okay, we're on this plan view. And again, that's the place, when we ask you that question, you're going to get, everybody's going to get 100%. That's really the place you start. And then it's going to lead you to, and I'm going to get rid of this stuff here. Something on that plan view is probably going to lead you to one of the other views. And then we'll probably find out that actually one of the other views might lead you back to the plan view, or take you to the mechanical plan view or the electrical plan view. So this can be flipping back and forth a lot, but that plan view, and for instance, the reason I've got this little circular symbol here pulled up is because hopefully most people will abide by this, but that is going to mean that you're going to go to sheet A1.2 and you're going to look at whatever they have called number 1. And then this little rectangle here is actually telling you which way you will look. Now, why does that matter before we get there? I'm going to show you. Sometimes these will have, and we have them, like the mechanical drawings later show, there's an arrow built into that symbol. But if everybody would sort of look up here, because I want to make sure, it seems like this really starts to give people trouble. In the past, they really want you to draw it, but I want you to just visualize it first. Bird's eye view, plan view, looking down. Little note says we're going to go look somewhere else, and we're now going to look through this wall that way. So let's pretend that doorway is where that is. And I'm going to go over where that line goes through. And I'm now going to be looking at this wall in what we call a section or a cross section. And it does have a direction. You'd be looking, in this case, to the top. And yes, I went to the opposite side of what this plan is, because this plan is obviously not for this room. So let's go to A1.2 and find what they're calling number 1. That is awesome. Wow. So that's it. What that was that to say? It said A. What did I have that as? I got distracted. Ah. Oh yeah, A1.2. So weirdly, it's taking us backwards, isn't it? Oh, man, gosh. You gotta be kidding me. There we go. Ooh. Why is that doing that? Stop. Ooh. Yeah, these tools are lovely sometimes. All right. A2. Let's go. Here we go. A1.3. A1.2. And let's see if we can find anything called number 1. There's only really one thing on there with 1, and it's called this trench drain detail. So it's not really a wall at all, even though on the drawings we looked down and that wall resembled something else. It's actually something in the ground that catches water. And it really is I know I sometimes take for granted people know trench drains and all this stuff, but it's just a little flat drain usually is before garages and things that catch the water. So that was telling you that, go look at that. Let's go find another one, because there's a better journey. I think it's one of these. No, I don't want the G. Don't want the G. It might be this one here. No, it's still G. Okay. Oh yeah, GA 4.2. Okay. So let's go to A 4.2, and they're gonna they don't give it numbers for this one. It's a G. So A 4.2. Go quite a ways. And we've got these here. Get out of the way there, buddy. E. Ah, man, I can't get down to see it. Let's see. Do this. Hopefully it'll let me do it. Ah, I knew it'd do that. Now this is kind of backward. I'm sure it's right behind everything here, isn't it? Gotta love it. There it is, G. So G is these things right here. It's showing you now we're finally looking through a wall. Just to help maybe understand some of this. This is the footing, the slab, and then this is the wall. Okay, so now we went from a plan to a section, and it's still telling us to go somewhere else. As a matter of fact, these little numbers over here tell you to go look at something else entirely. So while we're on this sheet, let's just go take a peek and see this 04810.f soldier course. So this is some sort of facing on the building. And if we zoom back out, I'd like for you to take a look over here and see if you can find that. I'm going to pull up that little area again. Because we're looking for 04810F. 04810F. Okay, so over here is some notes. So we just went from plan view, section view, to some little arrow with the numbers on it that took us over to some specification notes. And it told us a little bit more that we're talking about. This one was F, right? Concrete masonry unit, structural. If it was .A, it'd be the face of the brick. Well, guess what? Let's scroll up a little. So that's the specification list. And then if you need more details about that, you're now going to go completely out of the drawing and into the specification. Now, there is a lot of notes over there, right? And guess what? Just because it's here doesn't mean it's on this sheet. The other day, we actually took one of these and then went looking for it. And I know that I'll save you that little journey, but one of them was that 04810F. And what's neat about it is we were looking for, hey, where is the brick? So now, I'm gonna walk around until you guys find it, but okay, so we have found a section. And really those two sometimes are very similar sections and details, but we haven't really looked at an elevation yet. And so like, what's the difference between an elevation and a section? Well, here's the big difference. This is typically outside looking in. So an elevation view is standing out in the parking lot looking at the side of this building. So if you would, cruise around in there and see if you see a drawing that looks like you're looking at the side of a building. Now technically those kind of look like it, but you're really looking through those sections we were at. And then, uh-oh. Anybody get to these? All right, so A3.2. And so go ahead and zoom in there and see if there's any of those little notes. I think it was what, 04810, and see if it points to siding or brick or whatever it might be. And anybody needs to, it looks like everybody's navigating awesome. This is great. Yep, good, good, good. All right, so let's zoom in here. We're still on this little journey. So we got little notes pointing everywhere, right? And they're all those little things that's off to the side on the other sheets, probably on this sheet too, if I remember right. Yep, so they're carrying that list through, right? And let's see, I wonder if that, oh, that's neat. That's neat. That's cool. Okay, you know what's funny? Because when I don't use a set for a year or so, they did a really good job on something here. This is kind of what I would call a 2.5D drawing. So you got 2D, 3D, right? Well, they do a good job here in that it's kind of hard to tell, but you know, if you're looking at the side here, this is a gable at the end. So they did a nice little thing here where they made it what we would call a little bit of a perspective view. Interior design, what do you guys call that kind of view? It's not really 3D, but it's, is it perspective? Anybody who's I know you guys have had some of that stuff. Perspective sound good? I think there's some other terms for it. It's not fully 3D. You're not seeing everything in 3D, but you know, because it's really impossible, right, to be looking straight on here and then see that end, but that is helpful. And then they're doing the same here. No, that's kind of, all right, so those of you that have done these kind of things, I always love when I find a new little thing that I didn't notice before. Unless that's angled. Is it angled? No, it's not angled. Maybe it is. No, it can't be. There's plain old tricks here in that you really can't see this side. Now, you need to go back and look at the plan. Maybe it is angled. But, you know, this really wouldn't be straight if that's angled like that, if you're doing true perspective. But anyway, I'm not going to nitpick them too bad because they're doing this to help you see more on the same sheet. And then, man, we went from the plan to the section. details. We're at an elevation. And all through there, we looked at little notes, little symbols, little arrows like these. We can't get away from them because they're telling you to go look back through another sheet. So I'm not going to make you go on that journey, but you get the idea, right? This is back, forth, chase your tail, come back, didn't find what you want, start again, get the specs, and work really hard at finding it before you send in a request for information, because it's probably there and we just didn't see it. I need to look at something now. Yeah. Funny what I forget, but that probably is telling the truth. Now they did cheat a little bit on the end there, but those offices are at an angle. Speaking of which, it's firehouse, right? So they stay there. There's little notes saying bedroom. They've given it numbers. And I guess while we're zoomed in here, you can see there's a lot of dimensions. Architectural one's going to have this 4 feet and inches. Civil is not usually. Exercise rooms, slopes. I mean, this, you know, if you're just looking at this drawing from the plan view without this kind of slope thing showing here, you really don't have an idea of what it's doing until you kind of plot it out yourself. So sometimes when you get on a project and before everybody gets there, gets started, you know, you can look at a plan sheet and then try to draw those other views and then go see if you're seeing it right. And maybe you are, and maybe they drew it wrong. Who knows? All those things can happen. Oh, that's cool. Yeah. That's crazy. All right. All right, cruise along and see if you can find, we're about to wrap up here, because we've been through civil, architectural, but now we need to spend a little time looking at the MEP. So go down there and find a drawing that's got, I think the mechanical comes up first. Okay, so this is the first one that comes up with an M, so it's M0.1. And guess what? It kind of looks like their table of contents. I mean, there's not sheet numbers there, but they're giving you more symbols because their symbol world is different. Very different. Okay, now, this table up here is called a schedule. And if we went back and looked at the architectural drawing, you'd see a table over there, and I think it's the door schedule. So it's very common to have a door type or a number, and then you look at the schedule and it tells you the type, the size, all these different things. So those are a little component that is not a view. So if we get back to we got these views, right? We got the professionals involved, we got the views, and then we have some things that are more called components. And those can be these schedules, can be the notes. There'll be a few other little things, but they kind of all fit into a table category. It's nice when you see them on the drawings because you don't have to go digging through the specifications, but you probably still, these are probably going to lead you to the specifications, which we're not pulling those up today. We'll get those up next week. All right, so we've mentioned plan, all these others, and won't repeat them, getting repetitive, but you finally see when I flip to M0.3, one of them called a schematic, right down here. So what would be the difference between a schematic and any of the other views or a drawing is that there's probably no dimensions. It is just meant to tell you how things connect. You will have to, this is a really fun part on construction. This is where we start to talk about clash detection, because they don't always tell you where the mechanical things, the electrical, the plumbing, they don't say exactly where it goes. It's going to go through these walls, and it needs to connect like they say. And so everybody's working independently, and you're going to spend a lot of time trying to make sure that they don't end up crossing up too much. And yeah, that burden falls on the contractor. It's pretty tough. And if we keep on going, we'll get into the plumbing drawing. And of course, there'd be a fixture schedule for all the fixtures that go with the sinks and things. But they have plan views, details, all that good stuff. And then we get to electrical. Oh, they got their own symbols. They got a kind of a site plan here because there's electrical outside, plumbing outside. And then this is what I really love. I love when we get to this one. Go to E2.1 and tell me if you can understand that drawing. That's crazy, isn't it? You know, we got any, I hope you go into electrical, and we're lucky again because Dr. Gepkin is kind of an electrical guru. And so he understands those things. And I think, if I remember right, is this the lighting plan? When I'm zoomed in too far, I tend to lose that. Yep, upper level lighting plan. I mean, can you imagine being the person that's got like, and actually I can't imagine it because it's my brother-in-law. He's actually a professional engineer that decided he wanted to go work in construction. And if you're connecting all these things and then running them to some massive commercial junction box or breaker box, this drawing really means something to you because that's what's going to tell you what has to connect. And it doesn't exactly say maybe how or where. I mean, yes, it's going to be in the breaker box, but boy, those folks are really valuable. And yeah, I don't enjoy those drawings too much. Hopefully somebody in here does, though, because you got to have electricals do it. And there was 81 pages or sheets, whatever you want to call them, right? And we just went through all those. Again, the main reason for this is kind of to summarize from where we started, is to see that we start with that plan view and it takes us everywhere else. And then, again, you'll be frustrated numerous times this semester where you're looking for an answer to something and you think it should be on one sheet, it's not, and you'll spend some time, you know, trying to find it. Speaking of that, you'll notice when we get into doing some of these end of the chapter questions, or we have some exercises where you take a set of plans and we ask you questions about it, you go try to find the answers. Well, sometimes it's just not thinking, right? Or you just can't find it. It happens to me, and I've done them all. So the good news is that I'll typically give you about 50 questions to choose from, and you pick 20 of them, and you get to do them twice so that you hopefully get full credit. Because the homework isn't to punish you, it's just to get you to cruise back through the book and look through some plans and do what we just did there on your own. And I don't want you to be penalized for it. So the only thing that sometimes happens is you maybe pick out 20 to do, and then you're kind of like, well, I didn't like these 2 for my second try, I'm going to try these others. Well, that's a little bit of a gamble, I admit, because you hope you find the right answer. So you might want to go back and try to find those, but you know, you're going to end up getting most of the points on them, and doesn't turn out too bad. Now, last time I did have some pretty good questions, so anybody got anything? Unfortunately, I sort of answered some because some people asked me about this north thing, which we call a planned north or true north. Some other things that came up. Can't think of any. I think I ended up kind of catching them as I went through this time. I guess, you know, oh yeah, go please. What's that? Oh yeah, do I have that in-class assignment there? What did I have that one? How would you? We did that last week, didn't we? Which one I got to hang? I mean. I don't know. I didn't call it. I was wondering what that was. Ah, okay. No, that was. We really did that one in your notes last time, and so I think I extended it because I want to make sure everybody knew that you needed to upload it to Blackboard. But that was an in-class assignment where we just had you write down the stuff for your notes, take a picture of it, turn it into a PDF, and upload it. And if you want to work on that, you know, if you haven't got it in yet, you want to work on that while I'm here, I can help you, because last time I know I had a few come up, and especially Apple folks, you know, you definitely want to use the program called Cam Scanner probably on your phone. And remember, I love PDF.com because you take a picture of your notes, it'll be a JPEG. If you use Cam Scanner, you say, hey, save as a PDF right there. Now, later on, you're going to have 3 or 4 sheets, and you got to put them together into one, and then you probably want to go to I Love PDF and put those together. I'll pull it up because usually people do have some questions about it. If for some reason you can't, I'm sorry. Oh, I'm hard of hearing anyway. You can, right here's a little icon, lets you turn a JPEG to a PDF. So yeah, you might have to email it to yourself. If you take it on your phone, bring it up in there, convert to PDF. Later on again, when we've got 4 or 5 sheets, you'll want to go to Merge PDF. And you can drag and drop them there. And what's really cool is it'll show page 1 here, 2, 3, 4. But let's say they're out of order. You just click and drag that sheet icon over and put them in the right order. And then you'll save it to your system, give it the right file name, and upload it into Blackboard. Now, I'm not going to give you any homework. I will go ahead and put up the homework that you might want to take a look at. And for those of you that want to get started early, it's just going to be the end of the chapter questions. And so they'll be out there this weekend if you want to get a head start on them. Otherwise, you know, I'm not going to really assign them until next week. There are videos out there that are not of me, and that's of Professor Nelson, and you are more than welcome to look at those, especially if kind of my method didn't sink in. I will also be posting these videos. Now really, you know, this is abnormal because you're supposed to come to class and not get those, but since we're in this COVID situation, I'm going to make them available. So you're welcome to go look at those to kind of recap anything. Wouldn't be much to recap today, really, because we just did a hands-through walkthrough. And really, that's all I've got. If anybody wants to ask me some questions privately or whatever, I'll be hanging out here undoing my little system. And thanks for letting me, you know, fight through some of this stuff. I suppose if you're the one quarantined, you'd definitely appreciate it. I was hoping most people would make it through Labor Day so we could show them in class, you know, so. Yes, sir.
I'm renting my book.
Uh-huh.
So I'm renting mine off Amazon,
Uh-huh.
and so I haven't had it delivered yet, and that's
Yep.
why I haven't turned in.
Yeah, well, I think you can kind of do what Kayla, right?
Yeah.
What she did is she took a screenshot of what you bought in time.
Oh, okay.
So you can put that up there.
All right. Yeah, I'll go do that when I get back.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Just a quick question.
Yes,
kind of
ma'am.
Like in regards to the assignment, so for the, assignment about the materials. you
Required
had to
materials?
buy, you
Yeah.
would, instead of like uploading JPEGs or like images, you would rather have us scan those as a PDF?
Yeah, I mean, I put on there that this time it doesn't matter, but it'd be a step ahead if you kind of go ahead and figure that out.
Okay, totally, perfect, thank you.
But I wasn't holding you, you know, your feet to the fire on that one.
Okay.